Could U.S. trade policy really force a giant like Walmart to its knees? It's a question that seemed unthinkable just a few years ago, but one that suddenly became very real as global tensions rose. As President Trump escalated his trade war with China, the entire retail industry braced for impact. The uncertainty rippled through every level, from corporate boardrooms to the employees stocking shelves late at night. His administration imposed sweeping tariffs on billions of dollars of Chinese goods, sending shockwaves through American retail. Suddenly, the cost of everyday products was at risk of rising, and companies had to rethink their entire supply chains. At the center of this storm was Walmart, the nation's largest retailer, and a symbol of low prices for millions of Americans. With thousands of stores and a vast network of suppliers, Walmart's response would set the tone for the entire industry. Trump publicly challenged Walmart to absorb the tariffs, insisting the company's sheer size and buying power meant it could shield customers from higher costs. He argued that Walmart, more than any other retailer, had the resources to protect American families. This put Walmart in a tough spot: absorb the costs and hurt profits, or raise prices and risk public backlash. For employees and managers, the pressure was intense, as every decision could affect jobs and customer loyalty. Economists quickly pointed out that tariffs are essentially a tax on imports, costs that usually get passed to consumers. The math was simple, but the consequences were anything but. The president's comments oversimplified the economic reality, creating a public relations and financial dilemma for Walmart. The company had to explain complex global economics to a public looking for simple answers. The company had to balance the real financial impact of tariffs with its public image and relationship with the government. Every move was scrutinized by investors, politicians, and customers alike. Ignoring the costs wasn't viable, but contradicting the president risked political fallout. Walmart's leadership faced a delicate balancing act, trying to navigate between economic reality and political pressure. This standoff highlighted the friction between national trade policy and the operational realities of global retailers. It was a vivid example of how decisions made in Washington could reshape the lives of workers, shoppers, and business leaders across the country. For Walmart, the stakes were clear: adapt or face the consequences of a new economic order. The outcome would not only affect Walmart's future, but also the broader American economy and the daily lives of millions. Walmart's leadership responded to the mounting crisis with remarkable clarity and a sense of urgency, recognizing the stakes for both the company and its millions of customers. CEO Doug McMillon addressed the public and investors directly, explaining that absorbing the full cost of tariffs was simply not feasible. With retail margins already razor-thin and the sheer scale of the tariffs unprecedented, the company faced a financial challenge unlike any before. In response, Walmart made the difficult decision to withdraw its operating income forecast, citing the extreme unpredictability of the ongoing trade war and its impact on global supply chains. CFO John David Rainey emphasized that the uncertainty made providing accurate financial guidance impossible, highlighting the real disruption to business planning and the need for constant reassessment of strategies. Yet, even amid the turmoil, Walmart projected an image of stability and resilience, reaffirming its unwavering commitment to saving customers money and supporting communities nationwide. The company doubled down on inventory management and intensified supplier negotiations, working tirelessly behind the scenes to minimize price hikes and keep shelves stocked. Still, despite these efforts, some price increases were simply unavoidable, and customers began to notice changes on store shelves. Walmart's communications team faced the delicate task of explaining these realities, striving to be honest and transparent without appearing to defy the president or risk alienating loyal shoppers. By prioritizing transparency and proactive engagement, Walmart aimed to maintain trust, balancing its obligations to shareholders, employees, and the millions of families who rely on its low prices. The company's response became a careful balancing act, navigating intense financial strain and public scrutiny under the watchful eyes of the White House, the media, and the American public. Economists agreed, after careful analysis and debate, the cost of tariffs would ultimately fall on American consumers, not on China or the big multinational corporations as some had hoped. Instead of foreign companies absorbing the extra costs, it was everyday Americans who ended up footing the bill. Lower and middle-income families who depend on Walmart and similar stores for affordable essentials would feel the pinch most acutely. For these families, every dollar counts, and even small increases in prices can have a big impact. Everyday items, groceries, clothing, electronics, and baby gear were all affected by the tariffs. These are the products that fill shopping carts week after week, forming the backbone of household budgets. These aren't luxuries, they're necessities, so families had little choice but to pay more. When prices rise on basics, there's often nowhere else to cut back, forcing tough decisions at the register. Even small price hikes could strain already tight budgets, reducing disposable income and forcing families to reconsider what they can afford. For many, this meant putting off purchases, buying less, or sacrificing quality. Walmart warned that noticeable price changes would hit by early summer, fueling anxiety and uncertainty among shoppers who rely on the store's low prices to make ends meet. The threat of inflation dampened consumer sentiment, a key driver of the U.S. economy. When shoppers worry about rising prices, they tend to spend less, which can slow economic growth. The tariffs, meant to protect American industries and jobs, instead created immediate costs for millions of households, making everyday life more expensive for ordinary people. Walmart's promise of low prices was now under threat from government policy, challenging the store's reputation as a haven for budget-conscious shoppers. The trade war's impact was personal, felt at the checkout counter by ordinary Americans, turning a global economic dispute into a daily reality for families across the country. The trade war brought volatility and forced Walmart to rethink its business strategy. With new tariffs looming and no clear resolution, long-term planning became nearly impossible. Walmart retracted its quarterly profit forecast, highlighting the instability. Yet the company maintained its full-year sales growth outlook, signaling confidence in its resilience. The focus shifted from short-term volatility to long-term stability. Tariffs weren't the only challenge. Rising insurance costs and less profitable merchandise also pressured finances. Navigating this environment required agility and adaptability. Companies could no longer rely on stable global trade. They needed contingency plans and diversified operations. For Walmart, this meant reinforcing core strengths and exploring new ways to mitigate risk. The era of trade uncertainty demanded more resilient, flexible business models. Walmart's strategy reflected a broader shift in corporate planning for a world of constant change. Tariffs exposed the fragility of global supply chains that power Walmart's business. While 2/3 of Walmart's U.S. goods are sourced domestically, many essentials still come from China. Tariffs hit this segment hard, making quick supply chain changes nearly impossible. Walmart's model relies on sourcing at the lowest cost, but tariffs acted as a direct tax, raising prices before goods even shipped. The company scrambled to negotiate with suppliers, but the sheer volume made absorbing costs daunting. Walmart and other retailers began diversifying sourcing away from China, a long-term, complex process. In the short term, dependence on China meant price hikes were unavoidable. The trade war forced a strategic reevaluation of global sourcing and highlighted the risks of just-in-time supply chains. Tariffs didn't just hit a few products, they affected nearly every aisle at Walmart. Essentials like groceries, baby products, and electronics all faced price hikes. Seasonal and discretionary items from patio furniture to home appliances were also targeted. Manufacturers raised wholesale prices, creating a domino effect across the retail sector. Consumers couldn't avoid the impact. Higher prices on everyday goods threatened spending power. Retailers faced a dilemma: absorb costs or risk losing customers with higher prices. For Walmart, built on affordability, this was a direct challenge to its core promise. The result: rising prices, growing consumer anxiety, and a retail landscape in flux. The stability of the American marketplace was being steadily eroded. The tariff era brought volatility and forced retailers to adapt quickly. Walmart's CEO called the situation fluid, reflecting the daily uncertainty businesses faced. Companies had to monitor trade talks, consumer sentiment, and supply costs in real time. The lack of stable policy made long-term planning difficult, demanding caution and adaptability. Consumer anxiety over rising prices made spending unpredictable. Walmart used its logistics expertise to manage inventory and absorb some costs, aiming to protect customers. Operational efficiency became crucial to maintaining its low-cost edge. The trade dispute forced businesses to become more resilient and responsive. Old models of predictable planning were out, adaptability and fast decision-making were in. Navigating this market was a test of corporate agility and strategic foresight. Despite short-term disruptions, Walmart's leadership projected long-term confidence. By maintaining key financial targets, the company signaled resilience and strength. The trade war forced Walmart and other multinationals to rethink global supply chains and reduce reliance on China. Diversifying sourcing is complex and costly, but now seen as essential for future stability. The crisis showed how quickly government policy can reshape the business landscape. Walmart's path forward required balancing cost absorption, selective price increases, and relentless efficiency. The experience embedded caution and strategic foresight into corporate planning. Stable, open global trade can no longer be assumed. The future belongs to retailers who build flexible, resilient business models ready for geopolitical shocks. The Trump tariffs put Walmart at the center of a national debate on trade and retail. The president's call for Walmart to absorb costs clashed with economic reality. Consumers ultimately paid the price. Essential goods became more expensive, hitting lower and middle-income families hardest. Walmart withdrew forecasts and began rethinking its global supply chain, shifting from cost optimization to resilience. The trade war accelerated a fundamental rethinking of global sourcing and introduced new risks into corporate strategy. Walmart's ability to adapt has been tested, but the retail landscape is forever changed. The central question remains, how will American retail giants balance profitability, affordability, and global risk in a new era of uncertainty?